Welcome to the Payback Vault, your go-to hub for revenge stories, epic payback, and jaw-dropping karma. If you love thrilling tales of justice and dramatic moments, you're in the right place. Picture this: a quiet neighborhood, an ordinary home, and one neighbor who's a complete nightmare. I'm talking about Mrs. Ward. Now, Mrs. Ward, for some reason, took a special interest in me, and not the friendly kind. Mrs. Ward was always at her window, watching, judging, and waiting for the smallest excuse to complain, and she found plenty. It all started with my car. You see, I parked my car in my own space, just a few steps from my front door, but apparently, that wasn't good enough for Mrs. Ward. "Your car blocks my view," she'd say, as if her view of the back alley and other people's fences was something she needed every day. But that wasn't all. Mrs. Ward was convinced that I made too much noise, even though I was one of the quietest people around. Every time someone anywhere on our street played music or had friends over, she was at my door, accusing me of disturbing her peace. No amount of explaining could change her mind, but what really got under my skin were the cigarette butts. Every morning, without fail, I found cigarette butts in my flower pot right by the front steps. And the irony? Mrs. Ward herself reeked of cigarettes, but she insisted it was my garden that smelled funny. At first, I tried to be patient. I thought maybe Mrs. Ward was just lonely. I mean, she was in her 70s, lived alone, and, well, I was raised to respect my elders. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting with someone her age, especially an elderly widow. But then, the cigarette butts piled up, and then came the hedge trimmings. She actually started dumping her yard waste over the fence, straight into my garden. I'd had enough. Right around this time, my step-grandmother Rosa came to stay with me. Rosa is 82, a spry little woman with white curls, twinkling eyes, and the kind of energy that makes you think she's in her 40s. She's one of those grandmas who'll bake cookies for your friends, listen to your troubles, and read books late into the night. Sweet, calm, and kind, that's the Rosa everyone knows. And when I told her about Mrs. Ward, I thought she'd just laugh it off. One morning, Rosa and I were sitting by the window when we saw Mrs. Ward marching right up to the fence with a fresh load of hedge clippings. She lifted her trash bag, preparing to dump it over the fence as casually as someone dropping a piece of paper into a bin. Rosa watched, frowning. "Are you really going to let her get away with that?" she asked, her voice cool but with a glint in her eye. I mumbled something about not wanting to argue with an elder, that I was trying to be respectful. Rosa gave me the look, you know, the one grandmothers give when they're both disappointed and fired up. "Sit here," she said, her voice sharp. "I'll handle this." Before I could even react, Rosa marched outside, arthritis and all, straight for the fence where Mrs. Ward was still standing. I followed, a mix of shock and curiosity surging through me. Then, Rosa spoke up in a voice I'd never heard her use before. "Excuse me, sir." The way she said it, "sir," not "ma'am," made Mrs. Ward's face freeze. You could tell she was taken aback, maybe even a little afraid. Rosa didn't give her a chance to respond. She was already pointing at the trimmings. "Oh, don't you dare pretend that's not yours," Mrs. Ward snapped, clearly flustered. "I'm just returning what you left in my yard." Her voice was shaky, but she had that entitled look in her eye. She was used to getting away with it. Rosa chuckled, not a warm, friendly chuckle, but a low, dangerous one. "You must have missed a few details, Mrs. Ward. I know the difference between boxwood and red-tip photinia. These trimmings are not from my grandchild's yard." Rosa paused, narrowing her eyes. "And honestly, you're far too old to be tattling." Mrs. Ward's jaw dropped. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But Rosa wasn't done. She stepped closer, her voice a bit louder, sharper. "Maybe it's time you stop using my grandchild's yard as your own personal dump. It's disrespectful, and honestly, it's petty. Clean up after yourself, and while you're down there, why don't you pick up your jowls?" I couldn't hold back. Right there, I snapped my fingers, giving Mrs. Ward the ultimate period. She stared, her face turning redder than I thought possible. Mrs. Ward tried to stammer out a response, but Rosa was unshakable. She was standing tall as she could, with an expression that could have sent Mrs. Ward right back into her house on its own. For a moment, we all stood there in silence. Mrs. Ward finally bent down, picking up every piece of her hedge clippings, muttering under her breath. She looked up at Rosa one last time, trying to save face, but Rosa simply raised an eyebrow, like she was watching a toddler throw a tantrum. Finally, when Mrs. Ward turned to leave, Rosa added the final blow. Oh, and if I see one more cigarette butt, hedge clipping, or a single complaint about noise you didn't hear, I'll be filing a report with the council for property damage and littering. Consider this your last warning. Mrs. Ward's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but she didn't say a word. She knew Rosa meant business. Back inside, I was still stunned. I looked at Rosa as she calmly poured herself a fresh cup of tea, completely unfazed. I couldn't believe it. Sweet, gentle Rosa had just gone full warrior mode in less than 5 minutes. But that wasn't even the best part. From that day on, Mrs. Ward never dumped anything in my yard again. The noise complaints? Gone. The cigarette butts? Completely vanished. She wouldn't even look at our house if she walked by, and I caught her scurrying inside whenever she saw Rosa in the yard. Seeing Rosa in action taught me a valuable lesson. Respecting your elders doesn't mean you have to tolerate abuse or disrespect. Rosa's a reminder that you can stand up for yourself, or even better, stand up for the ones you love, without sacrificing kindness or integrity. She didn't use a single curse word, didn't raise her voice, but in just a few minutes, she'd made a lasting impact that no one on the street would soon forget. I still smile every time I think of it. Rosa may be small, sweet, and quiet, but trust me, no one messes with her family. And Mrs. Ward, well, let's just say she learned that the hard way.